We examine global contributions to culture in the late Middle Ages. The body of art, architecture, and literature that was created during this period of world history is a statement to the creativity of the era and to the cultural diffusion that was being moved along the global trade routes. It also showcased the talent of ordinary people in the artistic communities. In Europe, although Latin was the official language of government documents and religion, many writers began to express themselves in vernacular. During the Dark Ages in Europe, oral stories and traditions were passed from village to village by wandering minstrels, religious pilgrims, or merchants, and now they could be written down. It gave Europe a large volume of fairy tales and hero journeys. Popular books were ones that laid out the virtues of chivalry and honor, like Song of Roland and Don Quixote, but also religious and morality stories that told about medieval life, like Dante's Divine Comedy or Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. In Africa, oral traditions were also spread by professional storytellers called griots, which benefited from being translated in this time period to a common Arabic tongue, giving the world African folklore, heroism, and morality tales that could be translated in other languages. In the Tang and Song dynasties, scholars and writers like Li Bo wrote prose and poetry. Historians like his friend Du Fu wrote about the corruption of war. Li Qingzhao wrote about what it was like to be a woman watching men ride off to war. In the Heian era of Japan, writers like Murasaki Shikubu wrote full-length novels. Her Tale of the Genji was said to be the world's first novel, and Sei Shigong wrote about her observations of life in court in the Pillow Book. Under the Tokugawa shogunate, there was also increased interest in theater. In fact, they created a specific theater district in cities like Edo. Japanese no theater specifically, with men in masks and women in chorus lines discussing Zen Buddhist themes and fairy tales. Japan and China both favored a love of landscape painting in the way that Europe favored tapestries. China also began to build pagodas and develop artistic patterns on glazed porcelain, still called china. In West Africa, cloth weaving led to the kente cloth, which were bright-colored clothing made in silk and cotton. African artists worked in a variety of sources like ivory, gold, bronze, and wood. They made swords, statues, baskets, and masks, to name a few. Much of the art of the world, like in Europe, was tied to religious rites and ceremonies. Byzantine architecture and icons inspired Islamic architects to create temples with rising arches and domes and minarets. Muslim writers like Omar Khayyam contributed epic poetry, musical lyrics, and folklore and fable stories like 1001 Arabian Nights. Islamic and Chinese script worked in beautiful calligraphy, and Islamic designs used Arabesque patterns to showcase their faith. In Europe, heavy-walled churches reflected a style called Romanesque, which gave way to the more open concept of well-lit Gothic cathedrals that rose into the sky, marked by large stained glass windows. Art was reflecting a connected world.